So we are here for the third episode in our Adapt or Die series. Thank you to everyone who is here with us live right now and everyone who's joined us for the first two episodes in this series. Charlie Bathgate, and I'm joined by the one and only Sang Lucci.
How's it going?
Say
How's it
great.
going?
Yeah, this series I have to say is in large part attributable to Lucci, because we were in our company Slack and we were talking about ideas for what we could do for the series leading up to the master course, and Lucci popped in as he often does and just kind of like let it rip with a rant on the nature of things, and he was just like he was talking about, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks and months in the NFT space. He was talking about, analyst ratings on names like Shopify and Peloton prior to this crash, what's happening with ARK, like just basically, and we're going to talk a lot about this, but boiling it down to how important it is to do your own work and find your own truth, your own, a sense of opinion in markets these days. Otherwise, you're just a sheep getting led to slaughter, right? So that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Lucci's got, there's no one who's more fun for me to talk to about this topic of like, how do you adapt? What do you do when your back's against the wall? What do you do when your personal life is causing chaos in your trading and vice versa? The man has lived through a lot and lived to tell the tale. So that's part of what we're going to talk about today. And as I said, the whole reason we're doing this series is a lead up to the next live session of the master course. The next live session of the master course starts on June 6th. So that's coming up pretty soon. And you can learn more about the master course at sanglucci.com/MC, like master course MC. We've saved 10 spots at a $500 discount. There's still a couple of those left available. So if you use coupon code MASTER500 at checkout, you can save $500. Lucci, before we get into the webinar, anything you want to say about the master course to folks who are thinking about it?
Similar to the adaptation, we've obviously had to adapt our course over the years. I mean, I've been teaching for a while, man. I mean, I remember teaching one-on-one, doing Skype, for like $80, before I even knew what I was worth. And even now, like, to fast forward all the way to now, and you look at education as a whole, especially higher education, college, university level education, they're charging even more and not doing in person. And they're not even doing in person stuff. I mean, the in person stuff is coming back, but it's like, if you take away, what I see too, like I'm here in the office, and a lot of the people that come rent desks here are kids that are in the university here in Puerto Rico, and they're doing class or whatever while they're trading, and they're ripping answers and test answers or whatever from Chegg and all these other online sources that they have subscriptions to, and they're just breezing through everything, which I did anyway. But there's a missing link here between the interactions socially, and I'm not saying it's worth it to pay all that money just for interactions socially. But what I am saying is that unless you have an actual connection to the material and you create some kind of an attachment to it, so to speak, there's no learning. There's literally no learning.
Yeah.
So even with trading right now, like there's never been more trading education out there. There's never been more, and there's never been this amount of it out there. And now the problem is who are the scammers, and what are the scammers? The scammers are the ones that are just jacking our stuff and then just making it theirs and selling it for cheaper. Or the scammers are the ones that have no idea what, they're not even really trading. And now your problem now for education is you have to go through all of this research on finding out who actually is going to give you the information that you want. And now you have to screen through all of this stuff just to find somebody real. And it's a sad state. It really is a sad state, and it even affects us as a business because The scammers get to you guys first. The scammers get to you guys first, way before we do, because their marketing is better. Their this is better. Their that is better. All we can do is what we do. And we have adapted, me and Charlie have adapted this course over the years to add in so many different providers as well to teach you things that we can't, or that we aren't experts at. So we're bringing you all these experts from different places, different strategies. The strategies have compounded from when we started. I mean, I was just a buy options, sell options guy. Now it's writing options. Now it's hedging. Now it's futures. Now it's crypto. you know we've adapted with the times, and we've given you all that inside of this course as well. So, you know, I'm not saying it's not an easy thing now with education. So if you have the desire, again, like Charlie was saying, if you have the desire and you want to put in the work, we've always been real since day one. There's nothing else we can do. So that's all I got to say about that.
Well said. Well said. If y'all have questions about the master course, we'll do a Q&A section at the end of this, and we'll take some questions there. But let's get into today's topic, man. So adapt or die, as we talked about, Luch, this is, part of this is born from a rant that you went on where you were just basically saying, like, adapting to new circumstances is synonymous with being a trader. You are always having to reinvent yourself. Do you feel like that's more true now than ever, or it's just, hey, this is just yet another example?
I think we feel now. It's like if you've already gone through something, it's very easy to look back at those things and grade the levels, right? It's like if I'm going through something right now and I have to adapt now, of course I feel it more than ever. But in reality, if you look at the history of things and you've been trading long enough, you know that every market environment looks just insane. And people are always saying, I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before. And we go through these periods in time every decade or so, or whatever, things get like this. So to your point, it would be the latter. It's like it's just another time where you need to do that work again, kind of thing.
Right.
And I
Right.
like to say that this is the most, the craziest thing ever. That's what I feel like saying, but in reality, like, I remember what 2008 was. I remember what it was even when COVID happened. I remember what it was even, when the markets just go dead and it's dry. There's just nothing to do. There's so many periods of time where you have to adapt. We just kind of forget about these times. It's like Boston. It's like when I live in Boston, you forget the summer even exists. You forget hot weather is going to come around every year. It's like, oh shit, damn, it's actually here, and you
Right.
forget. So it's just another time. That's the real answer. You're gonna have to go through this over and over and over and over. It's just right now it's so tense, that we can use the adapt or die kind of thing as a good way to explain the times.
Right. Right. So, I mean, for you, I mean, let's talk about you and how you kind of engage in this process. Like, when you are in at one of those points where you're like, I gotta switch something up, I gotta change, I gotta adapt. Do you start, do you consciously say to yourself, like, hey, this is just another one of those times. It's just the equivalent of a Boston winter, and I know that there's summer ahead. Does that help you? Or you're just like, I'm in the shit. I'm feeling this. I gotta do
It depends.
something.
It
Yeah.
depends if you're up or down, doesn't it? It depends if you're up or down, doesn't it? It really has that effect. It depends on your mental state. So to your point, it's like if I'm going through a drawdown and I can't understand a particular market and I need to adapt, it does help for me to continually tell myself, like, hey, you know times will come around where you start to understand the market. But if you're not understanding something and you're forcing it, then that's on you. So there's mental processes that I will go through during those periods in time where I don't understand a particular market, or maybe I'm blocking my attempts to change and adapt and all that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of both. There's definitely a little bit of both involved there.
Yeah. And so when you say I'm blocking my attempts to adapt and change,
Mhm.
what do you mean by that? Like, how do
Okay.
you, how do you get in your own way?
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
from 2017 or 2018, I was making a couple million a year, and I did it for 3 years in a row. 3, 4 years in a row. I think it was three and a half years. It was just the best run I've ever seen, man. And that's because I found writing options, and that's because the market was in a place that was predictable. It was more or less predictable. We were just kind of it was just kind of we were doing nothing, There was really no movement. And then COVID hits. And COVID hits, and it's like the news cycle just became the news cycle, Twitter, social media, everything just became so intense. And then pair that with my personal life as well and all the things, you know what I tend to do after I have some really good periods in trading? I tend to add a lot of projects in my life. I tend to go for, the next sort of evolution, as one always will, because this is life, right? We're human beings.
Right.
If you go through something, you do well, you think you have it figured out, and you want to take the next step. It's natural. There's nothing
Yep.
wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
So it's just when these things kind of converge, it kind of puts you in a place where you might be over levered not financially. You might be over levered mentally. You might be over levered resourcefully. You might be over levered in a lot of different places. So COVID hits, and then everything changes. And I have never seen that type of hype in my life. I mean, you after COVID, it was like you saw names like Pinterest, you know, go to freaking $100. You saw names like Snapchat go to $80, Netflix $700, Shopify $1,700, and this whole narrative that the online world and digital everything and tech and everything needs an AMD graphics card or an NVIDIA graphics card, and that whole narrative just got pushed, and everybody on the street went with that narrative, right? Including the biggest, which is Kathy Woods Fund. Um, and it's not only her, everybody is in these same names, everybody. And the whole world puts their whole net worth, of course, in any trend. It's just how it works. And it continues to work. It continues to work. It continues to work. Me, I was fighting it because I saw the COVID drop and I saw the rally back on all this stuff, and I was like, this makes no sense to me. This makes no fucking sense to me. And but when you get caught in something, when you're fighting something like that, I was fighting it the whole time. I'm trying to short shop at $700, $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300. I would still find a way to get out. I'd still find a way to make it alive. But there's only so long that you can keep fighting something, and that's what I was doing for the majority of the time. And the
Right.
worst part about all that is you fight, you fight, you fight. But as you're fighting, and remember, we're traders. One of the most important things we have to do is make sure we still had a seat. You still got a seat at the fucking table. If you risk the seat at the fucking table, you got no more game left. You know what I mean? You got no more game left, and then you got bigger problems. Now you got bigger problems. Now you got to go back to work, or now you got to go convince somebody to give you some money, and now you got to do all that. This is the lifestyle of a trader, you know. And I'm pushing those boundaries. I never got to those places, but I was pushing those boundaries, and I had to come up with something. I had to come up with something just to save myself or just to, continue to perform. And that was the impetus for me to find crypto. And I'm pointing over here because I got my laptop and I got a couple of shorts on here. But that was the impetus for me to like focus some efforts on crypto, divulge some assets towards crypto, because things were moving in a way that I could understand. So I had to find markets that gelled with my current mental state, because if I'm fighting Shopify, even though I know it's not worth $1,700, $1,400, $1,100, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. And at that time, you just got to upgrade from every single analyst everywhere. That this is, these things are worth way more than what they are right now. And then we just went so far into excess, bro. So far into excess that I just couldn't believe it. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen that level of excess before. So I had to do something.
And that something was, you're saying, adapt, move to markets where you felt like you had a better read on it, which it was crypto
Absolutely.
at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
crypto at the time. What came out in crypto were these products called perpetual futures. And basically they would allow you to lever up a futures contract with no expiration, but you either paid a fee to be in the contract or you got paid a fee depending on which side you were, and a lot of other stuff that we can go into, and we do go into, by the way, in the course, as well as the crypto course that we have.
Yep.
Um, but I started trading futures aggressively, and I could read it. I could read it. I could understand it. I was like, oh, okay. And the market participants were different. It was just different. I could understand, things sort of made sense in the sense that if there was a hype coin, some new bullshit coin that came out, sure, you got 1-2 days of big pushing, but eventually these things were going to go to zero. So I actually started becoming this short small cap guy, but instead I was shorting crypto names,
Right.
and I was able to do really well and just save myself the pain of the equities markets, which I was fighting. Instead of
Yep.
going along with the pump, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't fucking do it. I
Yeah.
couldn't just buy GameStop. I couldn't buy any of this stuff. I couldn't buy Shopify up there. I couldn't buy Riot and Mara, and I couldn't buy any of this shit. I couldn't buy anything. I couldn't do it. I couldn't fucking do it. And then lo and behold, the shitty part about about trading is that if you push that too much, the fear sets in. You lack the confidence now. You might have damaged your trading account. So you're thinking from behind in the sense that you got to make back losses and blah blah blah. And then when that short comes, you don't even believe it. When I saw Shopify dump to 1400 from 17 like this, I remember looking at this thing and being like, this is it right here. You put your whole livelihood here in this right now, and you bet that this thing is going to $1,000. I couldn't do it. I couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
it was like the most depressing time for me. I was
Yeah.
so I was so upset at myself, but I don't know, man. I can't even recant exactly what was going on in my mind, but I know for a fact that everything that happens to traders when you're fighting a particular, movement, or you're fighting yourself or whatever, or you're trying to make back losses, you just you don't have that confidence. And when you don't have that confidence, you can't shoot from the hip, man. And that's what I do best. So I
Yeah.
had to I had to say, you know what? You got me. You got me. You got me. You take that win. You take that win. I'm gonna eat it, and I'm gonna move the fuck on. And I went to crypto. Things started to go really well. You build your confidence back up, and then boom, I come over to U.S. equities, and everything starts tanking. And now, you know, I got my shit back, kind of thing.
Yep.
So I never. I'll tell you what. This time around, and we can talk about adapting in so many levels. I mean, I came to Puerto Rico like after having saved myself from disaster coming out of New York,
Yep.
and after having to adapt to go back to another business that I used to mess with because I didn't have any trading capital. So you want to talk adapting, like after that loss, like I had to do some things that I wasn't ready to do. I was even thinking about writing a resume again. But I went back to an old business that I knew always produces, got myself a seat at the table, and came back to the game. And as soon as I felt like my confidence was coming back, I moved to Puerto Rico, bought some assets, and I was able to flip that into millions of dollars again. And this time around, I'm smarter. I'm just smarter because of all the shit that I've been through and all the mistakes that I obviously made in the past. So
Right.
in this moment in time, drawdowns for me, they'll never kill me like before, Charlie. So if we're talking about adapt or die, I literally did that. I literally did that because I was on the deathbed. I was on the deathbed, and I made the moves that I needed to make, obviously a long time ago. But you can't beat yourself up like that. You make them when you make them. That's it. Life's gonna put you where life's put you, and you make those decisions when you can. I was able to make those, and now I built this sort of foundation where even if I fuck up, I can't fuck up. It's like a Toyota Camry. Even if it breaks, it can't break. You know what I mean? So even if I fuck up, I can't. I'm not dead. I'm never dead. Even if I
Right.
lose a couple million, I'm not dead. I ain't dead. I got my
Right.
seat at the table. You know. So those are the things that I had to do to get to this place, specifically over time.
Yeah. You diversified. Yeah, you diversified your risk in terms of your
Exactly.
overall financial state. But I mean,
Exactly.
it's really interesting to hear you talk about what your experience in the past like couple years has been and that level of frustration that you got into. Because I think a lot of people would say you take a snapshot of somebody like you who has made as much money as you have, and you had as much, you own multiple properties down there, and all the hand you have
All
in
the
various different
things.
businesses and all the shit. They'd be like, this dude's never really getting to a point where he's that like frustrated, right? Like his gears are never going to grind that much because what does it matter? He's made it, he's rich or whatever. But you do get there. Like I think it's important for people to hear that no matter what, you're still going to go back in those same
Oh,
sort of
you're still gonna go back.
places. It might be a bigger sort of concentric circles because of the size you're at or whatever. And what you're saying, the stakes are, even though you weren't looking at like whatever being completely losing, everything that you've got, you
Yeah.
still are going to that mental place.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
You're still going there mentally, and you still feel it. You still internalize it the same way. You still
yeah.
ask yourself the same questions like, shit, man, could this be it? Shit. You know? Like,
Right.
you
That's
know,
what's crazy. Yeah, that is what's been crazy about that.
you still ask yourself that shit. I mean, guys, think about it. Remember, we're traders. All of us in here, we're all at different levels. If you looked at, if I don't know if any of us, any of you have looked at ARK stock or Netflix, or I'm sure you guys have, or even the Luna, the UST stuff that happened in crypto. There was $60 billion that disappeared in 2 or 3 fucking days because of a mechanism that somebody came out with to basically allow themselves to create nothing and buy $10 billion of fucking Bitcoin. It was all just a Ponzi. It was all just a nothing thing that created billions of dollars and then it fucking disappeared. But in the process, that money was real. That money was real, and people's lives were attached to that fucking money. So whether you're trading 100,000, a couple million, or fucking $60 billion, your ass, you still feel the same things. Believe it or
Yeah,
not. Believe it or not, you still feel the same fucking things. And this shit is up and down just as much as your account is. So don't think that, if you're in these mental states that number one, you can't get out of them. Number two, that you don't have the skills to get out of them. And number three, that there is no fucking future, because all that shit is false. All that shit is completely fucking false. You've allowed yourself to believe it. And when you allow yourself to believe it, that's when you got no game. You got no game, and you got to work through a lot of that stuff. You got to work through all kinds of other stuff to see the other side. And some people just go straight to commit suicide because they don't see the other side. And we had several. There's 2 people that I know of that happened to recently
mm,
because of all this shit. Two
mm,
people that I know of. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
So you look at the extreme side of it. You can look at the middle side of it. You can look at wherever the hell you at. These things are happening. These things are happening, and they had a choice too, to adapt or die.
yeah,
And that's what they chose. So we might say that we might use that phrase literally or as a slogan or whatever, but this shit is real. That money is real. And we are attached to this money because of what we want, because of what we want to produce, because of our lives, because of the people in our lives and all that kind of stuff. All of that stuff affects how we move, your personal shit, all of that stuff. It affected me throughout this whole thing, because I am a man who is supposed. If the market's going down, I'm supposed to destroy shit. I'm supposed to destroy shit, and I wasn't, because what? I was too early and I lost a bunch of cash because I was too fucking early, and now I don't have the confidence. Fuck that. That's not me. But I had to go through that. I had to go through that. I had to see it.
right,
And these are the things that happen that push you to adapt. Now, you fight those energies. Most people just fight them, and you just say, "Nah, nah, nah. I'm gonna just keep going. I'm gonna just keep going." And then sometimes you just come out there and you do the same thing every day because you don't know what else to do, and you're just slowly digging that grave. You know what I mean? You don't want to take a hard look at any of these things because it's too hard to anyway. You know, so that's where I was, and luckily I've seen it before many times, so I never felt as strongly as I did before. When I went through some big drawdowns before. So I was always confident that I was going to come out. But guess what, Charlie? The shit that I build and the people that are now attached to me, they didn't have the confidence. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They didn't have the confidence. And now now you're attached with other people's lives that don't have the confidence in you,
Right. You got to deal with people doubting
and
you.
you're
Yeah.
and you're the one that is providing an ecosystem for these people.
Yep.
Now that shit really fucks with you. It really fucks with your head,
Yeah.
you know? Because now you're dealing with not only your problems, you're dealing with their fucking problems too. And everybody is in a sour energy mood because you ain't performing. And
Right.
unfortunately, that is the life of a trader. That is the life of the trader. It doesn't have to be for you. You don't have to choose to, build things with other people. You could be a solo guy and keep things simple. But for most people, you're going to want to interact with a lot of people. You're going to want to help your families. You're going to want to help, you're going to want to grow businesses. You're going to want to do all these things. So you have to grow as a person too. You know what else too? I need to adapt right now that I haven't. I'm not a good manager, Charlie. I am not a good manager. I'm not a good, I'm not a good business operator. I'm a great business mind, but I'm not the fucking operator, man. I've never been. But I continue to put myself in situations where I have to be because ain't nobody else gonna do it. But it's you know what I mean? It's just some things you have to accept that at whatever point in your life, you have to accept those things. In order for me to move forward with the current shit that I got, I have to be able to inspire people. I have to be able to trust people. I have to be able to allow them to be themselves. I have to find roles for them that fits their person. I got to do all that stuff. And let's face it, I'm not good at it. So what do I need? I need Charlie. You know what I'm saying? I need people like Charlie. So, these are the things that you got to look at yourself at and be like, "All right, I got to adapt this. I got to change this. Otherwise, I'm going to die this slow fucking death." You know what I mean? The businesses and the things that you want to start, whether it's your trading career or business or whatever, you get into comfort mode all the time, all the time. It doesn't matter what you're doing, even in a relationship, you're going to get into comfort zone. And when you get into those modes, we stop we stop growing. We stop growing. And then eventually you got to speak to those because then you're going to once the comfort is going to hit a place where it's like, what are we doing here? What the fuck is the point in this? You know?
Yep.
And you're
Yep.
constantly going to brush up on that resistance, and you could keep just doing whatever. You could stay in comfort, but I tell you what, man, you're gonna be real miserable staying in that place, especially over time. You know, so these are a lot of the things that I've had to adapt, and I still need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so with you, when you look back, I feel like for you, there's usually sort of not talking about just account value, talking about sort of energetically. We've worked together for like 11 years now, which is fucking crazy. And I know, at this point, like there's sort of like an energetic, like, kind of goes down and then it hits like at a certain point, it hits a dip,
Yep.
it hits a bottom.
Yep.
And then there's a turn that you make, like an adjustment. What do you feel like? I don't know if it's this particular time where it happened for you. There's a psychological switch that you flipped. Sometimes you talk about it, being sort of just acceptance of the situation. You're just like, I just had to accept it. But I mean, what do you think
Yeah.
happens at that
I
at
had
that
to.
bottom?
I lost. You know, I think as we grow, we want to get better and we want to change how we do things, and we want to I don't know, man. I think honestly, if I can be completely honest, and I don't even know if this is this is true yet. It's just how I feel. I I stopped being an asshole, man, and that's the easiest way to say it, Charlie, because it just comes off easy. I don't know how to explain it per se, but when I say I stopped being an asshole, I was trying to make everybody else the happiest that I could, right? And I was trying to, have the best relationships that I could personally, work wise, and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, like I asked for it. It's almost like, I'm trying to please, but at the same time, I'm losing accountability. I'm losing productivity. I'm losing all this kind of stuff, and I almost even allowed it. You kind of get to this place where you allow this kind of stuff. And when I say allow, I mean like employees to start just getting comfortable as well, and thinking that shit is easy, or you don't have to work for it, or things like that. And I don't know, Charlie. I'm complicated in the sense that I expect a lot from people, and because I expect so much, and also you add it to the fact that I'm not the best at being able to explain, what I want as well, and trying to navigate those tricky relationships, employees, spouse, kids, all that kind of stuff. You kind of lose yourself in the process because you're just trying to do everything to make somebody else's existence a little bit more comfortable or whatever. And
Right.
that's where I was focused on. And I couldn't believe that but at the same time, I hated myself for doing it because I knew this wouldn't get me to a place where I needed to be. And then I started realizing, like, bro, you're the reason why they're all fucking here in the first place. You are the reason why all this shit exists in the first fucking place. Why are you trying to make excuses for who you are and for mistakes that you made and for all this kind of stuff? And of course, there's a boundary that you have to live on. But I just got caught up too much in that path, man. And I think you can link it to this sort of, you want to have this sort of path of higher consciousness, this ability to be able to let things go easily, the ability to be able to not allow things to frustrate you, not allow things to get on your nerves, and be able to have these great relationships, great working relationships where everything's all good. You get what you need from somebody. They give you what you need, you give them what you need. But human beings are fucking it's not that easy, man. It ain't that easy, and I went too far down that road. And once I realized again, like, yo, remember who the fuck you are, man. Remember what you do. Remember how you inspire people. Remember how, you enjoy yourself. And I stopped doing all those things, man. I stopped
Mm,
doing all those things because everybody else I felt like didn't want me to do those things or didn't want me to be that person. And I allowed them to have their fucking opinions, bro. And I internalized it as such. I started even asking myself, like, what's the point of any of this stuff? What's the point of all? I started going down on all these deep rabbit holes where I couldn't get out of, and there was no solution. And then I was like, hold the fuck on, man. Do you forget who you are? And I forgot. I forgot completely. And once I found that again, forget about it, man. Forget about it. I was able to release relationships that just weren't working. I was able to just move through them and reestablish expectations, and just be upfront and honest about the way that I felt and everything. And once I did that, shit just shifted. Shit just shifted. Confidence came back, and boom, like that, like that. Money pours into your account. Other things start happening, and then you're just like, holy shit, that's all I needed to do, you know. But
yeah.
you can't just sometimes you can't just turn it on and turn it off, and you have to go through these things, which causes you to to need to adapt. So I don't know
Yeah.
if all that ranting even made any sense whatsoever, but Charlie, I'm sure can decipher it for you guys. He's good at deciphering my. bullshit sometimes.
I mean, it makes sense. And if anything, what you're showing and what you're talking about is, as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you talk about just how deep the interplay is between our personal lives, our own psychologies, our own, you're getting in, spirituality, like how deep this stuff goes and how interrelated that is with what we're doing, professionally, what we're doing in trading or entrepreneurship. I can relate to a lot of what you're talking about as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and the dynamics there. So I think it's really helpful for people to hear and understand that people at the highest levels, someone like you who's been doing this for as long as you have, and who has the skill sets that you have and has had the success that you've had, is also sitting there going to these places, asking yourself these questions, and that this is part of you. We're not, everybody has their own way. Everybody has their own way of working through stuff, but this is a way, this is a place that people go to. And this is a part of how you can kind of shift that energy to get yourself unstuck and adapt.
I had to figure out what I wanted again. I had to figure out what I wanted again and why, and the things that of course were most important to me. And I had to do that process again of cutting out shit that did not serve that new sort of narrative, and rinse and repeat kind of thing, which I've had to do many times. So that's
Yeah.
the process of reinvention for me. And this time around, though, Charlie, is that I knew that's what I was going through. I knew that's what I was going through. All I had to do was stick it out. All I had to do was keep going. But the pressure from everybody else and all the other things, that made that made things very complicated. And that made things very ugly. And that made me also very fucking miserable in between it. So that's the next step, right? So the next step, like the next time this happens in my life, what are the things now that I need to do to make sure that I'm still me, you know what I mean? And I don't lose myself, and I don't allow others to pressure me into that. If everybody's at a different level, right? And most people, let's face it, are not mentally, able to control how far deep and ugly, so to speak, that it gets. So if I'm in a place where I know I'm going to be okay, somebody else who's attached to me doesn't have that same mechanism. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when they don't have the same mechanism, obviously it results in the same shit that I used to do 10 years ago. Like, and I'm able to look at them and be like, all right, that's where you are. And listen, you got to go through your thing. And if you don't want to go through this with me, then the door's there, man. You don't have to.
Right.
You got a
Right.
choice too. And I wasn't able to do that. I wanted everybody to coexist. Like, you become attached to what you built and the people that are around you, and you don't want to see them. You don't want to see them. You don't want to see things change. But that's the necessity of it. And I had to find that again. And once I found that, you noticed the energy change completely. Like the way that I
For sure.
started talking to you, the
Yeah.
way that I started talking to, Charlie noticed it immediately, because I'll just hit him up and be like, this, and this. But that was me speaking from a clean mind. Before, I'm all over the fucking place. So you never know.
Well,
You never know what somebody's going through in reality, man.
I mean, 100%. Yes, absolutely to that. And you're saying, part of what you're saying is you had to return to this belief in yourself and this reminder of who you are, knowing
Yep.
who you are. And
Yep.
Ranch talked a
Yep.
little bit about that in terms of
Yep.
in his episode, where he was talking about, like, he knows that he can stick it out longer than everybody else. And he knows when
Exactly.
other people quit that he's got more fight in him, because people would tell him that he can't do it for his whole life. And he's like, fuck you, watch me do it. And Jay was talking about his version of this, in his episode, where he's like, listen, man, I keep things simple. I'm a simple guy. I keep things simple. And I know that that's kind of where I'm at. So, I mean, when you,
Yep.
going back to where you, in this
Yep.
most sort of recent period for you, where you were like, hey, I'm not getting traction that I need in equities and options. You went over to crypto. You were talking about the futures there, and you
Yep.
said this line where you were like, I just got this. I knew it.
Yep.
Was that Was that because you was just like, it was tape essentially for you, and you were like, I've seen this before, I know what it is,
Honestly,
or what was it?
honestly, bro, I think it's purely it's just detachment from what you're doing, and once you're able to let go of that, you're able to see something clearly because it's
Mhm.
new. I think just the fact that it was new and that I hadn't seen it before, it just made me invested in it from a mental standpoint, from an energy standpoint, and from a concentration standpoint. And
Mhm.
I just looked at it. I was just able to look at it with a clean mind simply because it was fucking new. But
Mhm.
if I had to look at shop another day, I'm not looking at Shopify with a clean mind. You know how my mind when I'm looking at Shopify is, what the fuck is wrong with you? How come you're not short this thing from every place ever? My mind was always in the past when I
Yeah.
looked at US equities and options.
Yeah.
It was always in the past. I was looking at it from that frame of mind, and I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get out of it because I was just so pissed off. I had so much anger and so much, all that kind of stuff built up. So anytime I looked at any of this shit, I'd be like, motherfucker. So, but then when I looked at crypto, it was a fresh thing. It was just fresh. It was just new. And then I'm looking at the NFTs and I'm like, all right. And then it was just a new game to figure out. And once you give your mind something to invest into, time, research, whatever, now all of a sudden you got some new purpose, you got some new game, it breathes some new life into you, and you can play. So I
Yep.
just took my knowledge from whatever I knew and I ported it over here, and then I played the game like that. And then
Yep.
it just got me going again. And then once it got me going, I come back to equities. It's like, all right, let all that shit go. Where are we at right now? What can you do? And this game every day in equities, man. Francie made a $500,000 today. You know, it's this game every day,
Right.
every fucking day. As long as you can keep your mind clean, as long as you can move. But if you're
And
coming at anything with the past or the future or whatever, you're gonna fuck it up. Especially for us traders, because you got losses, and we're looking at this game from a P&L perspective.
yeah.
So that's what it was. It wasn't all of us. It wasn't like, you know, it was like a rebirth or something like that. All it was the fact that it was new. It was new, and it was something that I could divulge my time into instead of looking at every tick on fucking Shopify and hating myself and hating the world. That's all it was. That was it.
Yeah. I mean, this thing
That's
of
it.
getting like a clean perspective, a clean slate, like letting go of that attachment, all the baggage that you got, come back around. I mean, now you're back in trading.
Absolutely.
You were
I'm
short
back in.
Tesla the other day. Like,
I'm
yeah,
back in
you're
trading aggressively everything. You know what I mean? And
right.
now I'm even
Right.
more now I'm even more motivated. Like I feel it every single day now when I wake up. I want to get up. I want to do those things. I want to go work out. I want to go play tennis. I want to go do all those things.
Right.
When you're going through a tough period, you don't want to do shit. You don't want to do shit unless you have to. And then when you have to, your energy is off anyway, man, and everybody can read it, everybody can feel it. It doesn't matter, And I mean, at least for me, I'm that
Yeah.
kind of person. Others
Right.
maybe, are not. They don't feel it as much, but that's me. That is
Yeah.
me.
You pick up on that shit. There's no hiding. There's no hiding
Exactly.
from
Exactly.
that. Dude. All right. Well, I mean, I got some more questions I could pepper you with. I think people
Sure.
in the chat are gonna have some more questions. I mean, yeah, let's take some questions. We're again, we'll do another plug for the master course, starting up June 6th, live session. You just heard Lucci talk. This is kind of the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. I mean, if you talk to anybody who's been in the master course, people talk about, like, Jesus, learning tape from Lucci was incredible, and flow from Jay or Ronch's, trading the post strategy, stuff like that. Like all the tactical stuff you learn, yeah, that's huge. I'm not gonna undercut that for a second. But what a lot of people, when we talk to students and they come back to us and they're like, hey, what was the most impactful for you? A lot of it is some of what Lucci just talked about, of him. He'll do like 45 minutes where he's breaking down tape, and then he just goes on a rant and explains how, what the psychology of this, like what the journey can be like when you are, trading at that level, and go and putting a really fine point on things that other people are saying, holy shit, I didn't know that anybody else had that experience. It feels like this guy is sitting in my head and he knows exactly what I'm going through. But there's a group of 50 or 100 people in that room, that virtual room, and everybody's having the same realization of like, this guy knows exactly what I've been through and is speaking to how I can manage my way through it. So the psychology part, there's classes that we have dedicated to psychology, but it's laced throughout the whole thing, because our perspective is, once we teach you how to trade, once we teach you tape and how options work and everything like that, you got to be able to execute, right? And if we're not teaching you how to manage your own head, then what are we doing? So
yeah, I mean, I'm coming back with a fucking vengeance, Charlie. And not really a vengeance in the sense that I gotta that I gotta extract revenge on these freaking stocks or whatever. But I'm talking
right.
about adapting. Like now, I just paid a full-time programmer. This boy is literally gonna sit next to me and cook up automation scripts for me, where I know I have my worst behavioral issues, so I can start soaking up some of those losses, and then to automate some of the strategies that I'm seeing happen in crypto every single fucking day. So there's so much new game here that I want to put into effect. This whole acquisition, well, not acquisition here, but this whole discussion with HFT Alert and this sort of connection with that particular software. You guys have seen us do many webinars with Steve Hammer. We have so much knowledge in our space. Ranchero, Chris Cady, Steve Hammer, and there's so much great shit. And Jesus in there, with the flow. There's so much great tech that is, you just you put all of us together. There's so much great tech that is happening, but it is so under fucking utilized because it's all very fragmented still. I need to find a way to get this automation to allow me to pull the pieces and to just connect everything together so I can fucking blow up my trading here at another level and also help everybody in the process. So
Along the way.
when you're
Yeah.
talking about adapting or dying, like anytime you go through these reinventive processes and you come out with that confidence, there's a whole world of shit that you can achieve just with that energy and just with that confidence that you have. So that's it. That's on the table for me. And I'm super excited about it. That excitement came back again, when
Yeah.
it just went dormant for like a year and a half, man. But that's improvement from 3 years of depression before.
It was not, dude. This time around, I know you went a little dormant and went in your head a little bit, but it was nowhere near what it. I mean, at least in my
Nowhere
experience with
near,
what it
bro.
was nowhere near what it was
Shit,
way
it
in the
was
past.
nowhere
So
near, man. You know what I
nowhere
mean?
near,
And you
man.
learn so much about yourself in the process. You learn so much about everything, about everyone, about how you interact with people. You learn so much about everything. And now you got to put that shit to use. You have to. Otherwise, then
Yep.
you're what? You're just dying slowly out here. So that's the true definition of fucking adapt or die. You go through these periods, they're gonna happen to you. It's okay, but because whatever happens on the come up, that's the special sauce right there. You generate now this new version, and that new version is going to coast you for a good amount of time before the next sort of down cycle happens again. But when the next down cycle happens again, you're better, you're better, you're better, you're better. I'm only 37. Sometimes I get to thinking I'm too fucking old and all this kind of stuff, and especially I got to thinking all that shit like, yo, maybe this is over, maybe I should just fucking sell all this real estate and just I thought this shit was just over, man. You know what I mean? You have those thoughts. You just
Yeah.
have those thoughts sometimes, and then you're like, "What the? Shut the fuck up, man! Shut the fuck!" And you're saying this to your own mind. This other voice in your fucking head, that inner voice that never shuts the fuck up. And finally, you just gotta tell it, dude. You're just saying shit to say it. I'm the human. I'm the one that has to fucking do shit. So that's it. That's it. Let's go. Let's go. Get up off your ass. We're gonna go play tennis at 5:30, and then we're gonna go up in here and crush Amazon for 100 fucking points. Shut the fuck up. Sometimes you gotta
There
get
you
there.
go. Master course starts June 6th. Well, I don't know what else to say. Yeah. All right, everybody. That's Yeah, I don't know what else to say beyond that, but if you got a question or so, drop them in the chat. Lucci, we had somebody ask a little bit earlier, like you've known a lot of people who haven't been able to adapt, who haven't been able to turn a corner, right? And we'll keep it in the realm of trading, I suppose. Like
Sure.
what do you feel like are the common denominators for the people who just got stuck and couldn't make the turn, couldn't figure out their market once their strategy stopped
They
working?
they gave up, Charlie. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
They gave up. You
yeah,
gave up. And unfortunately but don't look at it as a negative way. Maybe you had to give up. You had to give up to find something else. And then if it was meant for you to come back, then it was meant for you to come back. You know what I'm saying? But too many people live in that constant state of overthinking, over questioning, what happened and all that kind of stuff. Like whatever happened happened. You're in the state that you're in because that's where you're at. You have a choice to continue, and in order to continue successfully here, you need to dump all that baggage, and you need to be able to, give it an honest shot. But those people who sort of, say they can't find it or whatever, it's because there's so many reasons, obviously. But at the end of the day, whatever your environment was, you chose to give up.
yep,
And a lot of people blame it on the other people that they have around them, the fact that they ain't got money, the fact that they don't have a support system, or whatever the case is. It could be anything. You could blame it on whatever the fuck you want to blame it on, but at the end of the day, you gave up. You gave up. And you could extrapolate that over anything, whether you're a trader, business owner, you're trying to have good relationships. You gave up. You fucking gave up. And there's some things that, and it's not, I say you fucking gave up and it sounds negative. It ain't negative. It's not a negative thing. You had to make that decision at that time for you. For whatever reason, you couldn't hack it, or it was too much, or or you wanted something else, or whatever it is. So you do it with the fully conscious, and you go off on your way and you try to figure things out. If you come back to something, then you were meant to be there, but you can't give up. A lot of people give up too early. A lot of people give up too freaking early. Um, and that's just it. Sorry, I have
yep.
some people showing up for an event tonight.
All good. All good. Carmelo just dropped in the chat. If anyone was any doubt about the money they're thinking about spending, I took this course 2 years ago. Best money I've ever spent in my life. Lucci, Katie, Ranch, Jesus changed my life. That's pretty dope. Thank you for saying that, Carmelo. Appreciate it, man. Lucci, CT here, been here about 5-6 years. I believe last time rebuilding finally.
Yeah, hook them up. CT's a well-known,
Yeah,
well-known.
yeah, yeah. He's asking about lifetime access. Yeah, CT, dude, you get lifetime access for the course. You bought it once, no matter what price you paid for it back then. You get to come back. That's one of the biggest perks. You get to keep them back for free. So, Luch, I know you got this event kicking off here,
Yes,
so I'll
sir.
let you go, man. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody else for being here. Wednesday and Thursday next week, we're finishing off this series. Chris, Katie, and I are talking on Wednesday. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say on this topic. I think it's going to be awesome. That dude has seen a lot in his roughly 40 years of trading experience. And then we got a special guest coming in for Thursday to finish it off. So,
All right, guys.
Mooch, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Take care. Take care, everybody.